Hi, this is Paul Hill, and I want to welcome you back to Old Testament Survey. This is your Week 3 video update, and I have a few things to share with you today as we continue our class together. This is Week 3, which means we're introducing a third theme. Week 1, the theme was creation. Week 2, the theme was covenant. And here in Week 3, the theme is community. These three words go together. God creates. We all know this. We read about it in Genesis 1 and 2. But if you'll notice, the second creation story from Genesis 2 tells about the creation of community. God creates Adam, the man, and then says it's not good for him to be alone. I'll make a helper that is suitable for him. Or really, a partner is really the idea behind that word. Ezer is the word in Hebrew. So from the beginning, God intends for people to live in relationship with each other. And the first community was Adam and Eve. But there has to be a basis for that community, and that basis rests on a couple of things. First, it rests on being created in the image of God, what I just mentioned. And the second is being called into relationship with God through the idea of covenant. And we're not called only into relationship with God, but we're called into relationship with other human beings. And we read about this notion of covenant really all the way back with Noah, but it really gets rolling in the story of Abraham, which we looked at last week. So this notion of community, again, rests on two things: creation and the covenant that God establishes with us and with other people. And when I use the word God, keep in mind that God is a synonym. There are different names that are used for God throughout the Old Testament. So God and Yahweh and the Lord, all of these terms are synonyms. And I want to pause right now just to remind you to pay attention to that document that is located at the end of the second week of the class that talks about the names of God. I noticed in the quiz that some of you are getting confused. The name Yahweh, which is this special name that God reveals to the people of Israel, is rendered in English as the Lord, except the Lord is in all caps, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, the Lord. So that is the word Yahweh, or the name Yahweh. So pay close attention to that as you go on through your study. The word Yahweh is a special name that God gives to the people of Israel. It's a special personal name. In the same way that my children call me Dad, Yahweh invites the people of Israel to call him Yahweh. It's not a name that was used by the other gods, by the other people. It was used by God's special anointed people, the Israelites. Now, while Yahweh establishes and keeps the covenant, he does give his junior partners, the people of Israel, the junior partners in the covenant, he gives them responsibilities for them to fulfill. We call these responsibilities the law, or Torah, or the commandments. There are at least 613 or 614, depending on how you count. There's that many of these through the books of Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Many of these commandments seem odd to us. Some of them seem onerous and difficult and even unfair. But I want you to keep in mind three things about the Old Testament law, the Torah. First off, the Israelites loved the law, and it was not a hardship for them. Okay? The Israelites loved the law, and it was not a hardship for them. When they disobeyed the law, there were means for them to be restored and reconciled to Yahweh. So in the 21st century, we do not sing songs about how we love the law or how we love the regulations of our municipalities and our country. But Israel did sing songs about how much they love the law. So if you go to Psalm 119, it's the longest chapter in the Bible, but it is a song, and it's an acrostic song, if you will, that highlights all of the love that they have, not just for Scripture, but specifically for the Torah, for the law. So it talks about the law, the statutes, the commandments, and so forth. So the Israelites loved the law, and it wasn't a hardship for them. Number two, the law was there to help them live in faithful community. The law was about how to live in faithful community with God and with one another. So the Torah was about how to live with each other. So again, the rules are not necessarily arbitrary, although they seem that way to us many, many centuries later. They serve the role of keeping people in relationship, in positive community with each other. If you look at Leviticus 19, now you'll notice some expressions of this. There are many different ways that Leviticus 19 drives home the notion of the law serving the community. Again, the rules seem arbitrary to us, and let me give you one example. One of the passages in Leviticus 19 says something about not cutting or not harvesting the corners of your fields, but rather leaving the corners of those fields unharvested. And the purpose is so that the poor and those who do not have enough food can go and harvest those corner fields for themselves so that they'll have enough to eat. And they did this because it kept those people from begging. All right? That kept them from begging. So again, keep in mind the law was there to help them live in faithful community to each other. And number 3, the law also kept Israel weird. The law kept Israel weird. What do I mean by that? Israel was to be a kingdom of priests. We discussed this last week, and it comes from Exodus chapter 19, verse 6. Remember that passage. They are there to be God's special people, his his priests, his nation of priests, and his holy priesthood and holy nation. I'm butchering that quotation there, but you can look it up. Isaiah 19:6. And as the Levites were priests to Israel, so Israel were to be priests to the entire planet. And what does that mean? It means that they were to proclaim God's goodness to the entire world. Therefore, they needed to be peculiar, different than all of those nations around them. And the law helped serve the purpose in making them peculiar people, a peculiar people. So the law helped keep Israel weird. So 3 things, like I said, to keep in mind about the law, the Torah, or the commandments. Number 1, the Israelites loved the law and it was not a hardship for them. Number 2, the law was about how the law was there to help them live in faithful community. And number 3, the law kept Israel weird. The last thing I want to mention to you before I wrap up for this week is I want you to pay close attention to the article on the Shema and the videos on the Shema. There's several brief videos from the Bible Project on the Shema. The Shema, which means listen or hear, is O Israel, this notion of pay attention. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. These are the opening words of the Shema. And it is the bedrock of prayer for the Israelite people. And by extension, if you call yourself a Christian, the Shema is also the bedrock or the very lower foundation of prayer for Christian people too. And it is a reminder and a call for the people of Israel to live in faithful communion with God. So pay close attention to the discussions about the Shema. Read that article on the Shema. And of course, view all the videos. Read all of the assignments or assigned readings for this week. And keep up the good work. You're about a quarter of the way through the class. So you're making good progress and keep it up. And I look forward to touching base with you again in 1 week. May God bless you as you study, as you read, and as you seek to live faithfully to God.